So a few years ago, I'm broke. I'm depressed. I've been working in the business for 17 years on a self-employed, commission, fees-only basis. I'm working 6-7 days a week, which means I'm not seeing my wife, I'm not seeing my children. And actually what's happening is when I'm in the office, I'm often thinking about what's happening at home. What are they doing? What are the kids up to? What's Jerry doing? When I was in the house, I was also thinking about work because I need to know how I'm going to pay those bills. Who can I see next to get some money to pay those bills? And the clients that I had were really abusing my trust and my service, my willingness to drive anywhere in the country to look after them and to serve them. So I was losing out in a huge way, in every way it seemed. And because of that, and that feeling of, there's more to me than this. I've got a greater life than this. But I can't figure out how to do it, how to get that greater life out. And I was depressed. What I actually wanted was the life of freedom, a life where I could have choices about my time, and to see my loved ones, and to have time with my loved ones, and to work less time and actually have more money and create wealth for myself and other people, and to make a difference in the world, and to be happy, and to get that greatness which I know is inside of me, outside of me. This I had to do. That's the life. Right now, it's vital for me to share an idea that came to me that changed everything. Because for 17 years, I've been failing in my life and in my business, failing on every level that was important to me, until I made a decision that changed everything one night. 2003, November the 11th, I'm in my office and I get a moment of inspiration that said, you've been using a system, and this is my confession, I've been using this system for 17 years, a system that I've been told to use to become happy and successful by gurus and teachers all over the world. And the system was set goals to be happy and successful. And who hasn't heard that? Because wherever you go in the world, every approach says, set goals to be happy and successful. The challenge was 17 years in that position, read the books, went on the courses, not successful, failing, unhappy. One night I realized that, hey, this has got to change. And for that to change, I have to change. In a moment of inspiration, I realized instead of living in the future with these goals, I had to live in the present and be me right now. The challenge that I discovered was this: goals are future-based. And what each and every one of us does is we set our goals for that future. And we say to ourselves, when I get that thing, when I be that thing, when I've got that thing, done that thing, then I'll be happy. And there's the lie, isn't it? Because you can't be happy in the future. Happiness is a present time experience. Happiness is a now experience. I've been telling myself for 17 years, one day I'll be happy. And in order to be happy in the future, I was actually removing happiness from today. And I had to stop that night. And it did. The system of goal setting is something that everybody uses everywhere in the world. And I've spoken now on 4 continents to people from hundreds of countries. And they've all used the same system. But here's the challenge. Most people, most places, most of the time, miss their goals. And my question is, how long do you stick with the system that doesn't work for most people, most of the time, for about 100 years? How long do you stick with that system? Because if you've got a car or a watch and it doesn't work properly, it's broken, it means there's something missing. It's not working. There's something missing. And that night at my office, November 2003, I discovered what was missing. I discovered what I had to do in that space was to be myself, authentically me, which means 2 things. I realized I had to set and live by daily standards. And what that means is this. I realized in that space I had to go inside and discover who I really am and who I'm meant to be. And instead of living by these goals in the future, to live by standards, but one day at a time. So standards, as an example, is an authentic thing that's inside of us. It's real for us and that's true for us. This critical missing link is what I realized that was missing all around the world. I've spoken to hundreds of people and thousands of people at a time. And when I ask them the question, have you set goals? Most hands go up. And I say to them, the next question is, and how's that working out for you? Giggle, giggle, shuffle, shuffle, awkward look. Because it hasn't been working out for us, for you, for the world. And that's why daily standards became the way for me to go forward. So the daily standard became one thing. A daily standard is a basis, criterion, level, quality, or rule that you set from within. You set from inside of your truth, you as a person, you as a business. And you live from that place just for today. A basis, criterion, level, quality, rule, just for today. Not for the future, but for today. Because it keeps you present, it keeps you now. And remember, happiness is a present time experience, keeping you in the now. And this wasn't new. I realized actually what I'd uncovered was some ancient text. Because 2,000 years ago, Christ walked the earth. And 2,000 years ago, he said many things. And one of the things he taught us was the Lord's Prayer. And in the middle of the Lord's Prayer, he gave 4 words. Give us this day. Give us this day. And that meant being now in the present. And I don't think he misspoke. He didn't say, give us this month, give us this quarter, give us this 3-year business plan, give us this 20-year program, give us this. He said, give us this day. I think he meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And I think he was right. Son of God and all that. He was right. Today, present, standards, authentic. And I began to do that. When a few short years, everything had changed for me. The whole approach of my life changed. Within a few short years, I'd got the life that I wanted, and more, way beyond what I expected to have, far beyond. And I began to change my life, and I became, within a few short years, 3 years from that spot, I made my first million. But it's not about the million. I became happy immediately rather than waiting for something to happen in the future. But I made the million work in less than half the time that I used to. And I changed the clients I was dealing with. I got rid of the clients that were messing me around and abusing my trust and service. I let go of a number of my friends that were not the right standard for who I was, who I really was. I changed my health and my eating standards, my activity standards, my attitude standards, my relationship standards, my money standards. I changed all those standards, and as I raised those standards, I raised me up. And the gifts that I already had inside of me were there, waiting to come out, and they came out, which meant I began to coach and then to teach. And even as a former stutterer, to speak. And this is the gift of living by daily standards. Because when you're present, the gifts that you're missing, the gifts that could change your life, already inside of you right now, they're waiting to come out. So what I began to do was to share this around the world. People began with organizations and companies, and we're helping them to understand what the goal was doing to their approach. And what I realized that when people were living by goals only, they often had the wrong behavior in order to achieve those goals. And the wrong behavior meant a lot of companies around the world, and even present-time companies, people like Volkswagen and other organizations, and the banking system, they were using goal achievement and driving the wrong behavior. And if you use the wrong behavior to achieve those goals, you suffer. But more importantly, people you seek to serve suffer. So goals can drive the wrong behavior and cause us to be who we're not meant to be. And everybody loses. So as I began to share this and working with organizations and schools and companies and businesses, they realized actually, if we do this in a different way, we really get to achieve something beyond what we thought we could do, beyond goals. So that was from 2003. By 2009, Harvard released a paper, the Harvard Business Review. And that business review basically said, goals have gone wild. This is post-credit crunch, of course. And what they were saying was actually that the goals that people have been using in their businesses over decades has not only not kept them authentic and real and happy, had damaged the world. And they gave case after case after case involving Kellogg University, Kellogg Institute, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and put these papers and said, listen, goals have gone wild. The system that's breaking, the NHS, the care system, these are challenges that each of us are facing because of goals. They talked about car companies that had the wrong standards on their materials and their manufacturing that cost lives. They talked about businesses that did the wrong level of service, that where their customers suffered and paid over and over again for that service. They talked about care and hospitals and institutions. I think every one of us now knows that in the UK, the unnecessary thousands of deaths of people caused by the goals mentality and the target mentality of people that really wanted to help, but by having goals, forgot about the behavior and the standards, the basis, the criterion, the levels, the quality of rules of how they really should behave in order to make a difference in people's lives, the people they sought to serve. So I began this journey around the world to talk to lots of other people. And at first, because I know, like you know, that every teacher, every guru on the stage or any book says, set goals to be successful, I came up against some resistance. And I felt a bit like Copernicus, when he was saying, look, it doesn't actually work that way. You're missing something. It isn't a question of the sun going around the earth. It's actually the earth that goes around the sun. You're missing something. You need to do something different and pay attention to something different. And that something different was daily standards. And that's how we begin to make change. When we look at the reviews of what caused the banking crisis, we recognize that in that space, every single time, the solution or the summary of that report says, goals and targets. These guys and girls were trying to achieve their goals and targets with no idea what the standards should be. Or if they cared about the standards, they didn't want to use those standards. So let me say about daily standards. Firstly, is that they're daily. You do them every single day. And standards, your daily standards, don't care whether you're aware of them or not. I wasn't there when the rules were made up. Or maybe I was, I don't know. I wasn't there when the rules were made up. But what I do know is that they run you anyway. They run us, whether you're aware of them. It's like a baby on the couch. It has no concept of gravity. But if it rolls off that couch, gravity affects it. So your daily standards are like your subroutines. They don't care whether you know about them. They're running you beneath your belief system, beneath your values. They're running us. And because of that, we have to be really, really conscious of the daily standards that we adopt. So for the very first time, many people began to become aware of their daily standards. And they learned one thing. And this is the one thing. Goals don't achieve goals. They never have. Your success, my success, the world, all the achievement that we have is not determined by our goals. It's determined by your daily standards. The rules, the criteria, the levels, the base that we live by each and every day. Those are things that determine us. A friend of mine, who's a friend now, was a client back then, came to me and he said, I've got a problem. He'd been turned down for life insurance. And I said, well, no, and he was upset. I said, okay, so tell me what the problem is. He said, well, I've got these goals. I've always had a goal to be able to run a mile, I think he said in 8 minutes. He also said I wanted to have a six-pack. And he also said I wanted to be able to bench press 250. And finally said to me, I want to be able to walk my daughter, who was young then, walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married. So I said to him, tell me about your day and how you run your day. So, well, in the morning, one of the things I do, he said, is I have a full English breakfast. That's one basis of how I work. Full English, I said, every day? He said, yeah, every day. I said, okay, fine. And what do you do in the evening? He said, well, there's a rule, basis, criteria, level, quality, or rule. As a rule, what do you do in the evening? He said, well, as a rule, I have a couple of beers. Well, who doesn't have a couple of beers? That's what I do in the evening. And I'm around with these friends, and my exercise is quite a lot, because every evening, as a joke, he said, I do that whilst lying on the couch. And that's my exercise, the remote control, pretty much every evening. So I could see the qualities he was using. So tell me about the food that you eat. And the food that he was eating was low-quality food, high quality in terms of its cost, but high sugar, high fat. He had no level of the concept of the quality of what he was really eating. I said, okay, if a child walked in here today and said to you, these are your goals, healthy and walk your daughter down the aisle and fit and a six-pack, but if you use these standards, are these standards going to achieve that goal? And even you know, not in a month of Sundays, that those standards are going to achieve that goal. Because there's the second thing. Our daily standards determine us. Our daily standards predict us. They predict our story. Any one of us can look at ourselves or another and say, tell me your goals, now tell me your daily standards. So it's time to be honest and look at our daily standards. Once you've got your goal, forget it, set it. Because goals don't achieve goals. They never have. The daily standards determine us. Which is why when we look at organizations and businesses that affect all of our lives, we really have to pay attention to this stuff. Because we can look at that business and say, you're not doing that right. If you carry on doing it that way, you'll affect all of us. Galileo had a challenge. Because he went around the world and telling people who were in authority, the way you think it is, isn't the way it is. It's a different way. And of course I said to him, don't talk about this. Don't speak about this. This is heresy. You can't say goals don't work. What I'm saying is that goals don't work. There's something missing. What we have to do is focus on the daily standards, because they're the things that determine us. Let's focus on just these things and nothing else. So here's what I found for some people and some organizations. Some of them embrace this, and I now talk around the world to institutions and large and major companies, from financial services to healthcare companies, to help them implement daily standards to achieve their goals in a way that helps and serves. Because if you can run your life or your own business in a way that helps and serves you, that allows you to help and serve others, isn't that real? Isn't that more authentic? Isn't that the best way to be for you in the world? And that's what we began to do, to look at those organizations and say, here's how we could and should do things. But I found one or two other people, because they were stuck in the old way. Just like Galileo and his opponents, they wouldn't even look to see. You know, when he said, have a look and we'll prove it, just look at this system and you'll know that the old way that you've been using does not work. Have a look to see, and they wouldn't even look to see. Now, in our lives, every one of us, we have the opportunity to change who we are. And we can look at right now you can look at one of these areas and decide which of those areas is most important to you, to your life, to your business, to whatever goal you've got, and choose an area. And today, right now, today, review that area and review your standards in that area and how you're living in that day, because you need to know this. The way you are in that area will determine you, and nothing else. Whatever goals you've got, that won't be your determinant. It will be the daily standards. This is my grandmother. Lives in the care home. And the problem with this, so the one she used to live in, which is what this picture is all about, is that I used to go into the room and see on the back of the door that she had water given to her 6 times a day. The problem is when I walked into the room, she was dehydrated. So the goal had been achieved. Someone gets a bonus, someone gets a tick, someone gets a pat on the back, because the water was in the room, but my grandmother was bedridden. Goal achieved. My grandmother didn't get the water because she's bedridden. Goal achieved. Poor standards. People suffer. Banking, healthcare, hospitals, schools, organizations. That's you. That's me. That's us. So to change the whole thing, what I invite you to do is whatever your role in life is begin to make a difference. Don't be the guys that won't look through the telescope. Look, take a look, just look to see. And you'll see the difference inside of you personally and what you can do in the world to embrace this. If you want to change your life, you need to look at your daily standards as the best implementation tool for goals there is. That's what I've discovered anywhere in the world. If you want to change an organization, it's the same thing. Take a look at your daily standards. If you want to change the world, our world is not changed by our goals. It's changed by what we do. And what we do is our daily standards. Join this. It's not an idea. It's a movement. Thank you.